Deputy Minister in Leadership. We are about to start our meeting. May I request that we be seated? It looks like we all seated. I would like to request our choir there at the back to lead us as we sing our national anthem. Those who can stand, can we stand? Yes, thank you. The choir is going to lead us. Over to you, choir. Thank you very much, choir. My name is Nelisiwe Vilakazi from the Department of Social Development in the province. I will be directing this program this morning. This is an important day for us in the province of KwaZulu-Natal as we are hosting this launch. The launch by the National Department of Social Development, led by the Deputy Minister, Mebo Hopane Zulu, which is the launch of the South African Network of People Who Use Drugs. We are very grateful that out of all the provinces, Deputy Minister, you chose KwaZulu-Natal to be the province where this launch is gonna take place. We are grateful that there is good work and cooperation that is happening in terms of the support by the eThekwini Metro, and we have the Deputy Mayor who is leading the eThekwini Metro in this event. Before I proceed further, I just want to request Mrs. Siza Mohangwe, who is the Chief Director for Social Crimes and Families in the Department of Social Development at National, to acknowledge the guests that are present here today. Over to you, Caesar. Asimkhuthazeni ke ngezandla mayezala.
Thank you, Program Director. And good morning, Sanbonani. My name is Siza Mahangwe from National Social Development. My task has already been alluded to, is to acknowledge you and make you feel at home, because if we have not done so, it may be difficult for you to take off your jackets, to put your bag and all of that. So that's what we're trying to do this morning. We are here to acknowledge the guests that are here as well as the ones that are online. I believe there are people that are connected online. But I'll start with the ones that are here. The first one is to acknowledge our Honorable Deputy Minister, Mme Henrietta Bogopane Zulu. We know that she's one of the, one of our key people in making things differently and breaking new grounds. So we are grateful that she is here and she's the one that initiated or piloted this project. We also acknowledge Mama Nonhlanhla Khoza, the MEC of Social Development in absentia. We also would like to acknowledge the Deputy Mayor from eThekwini Metro. Okay, it's Belinda Scott. The next one, Ndabezitha Mtuli. Mama Nelisiwe Vilakazi. Okay, I'll say the name, we clap again so that we follow each other. Mama Nelisiwe Vilakazi, our HOD, our program director. Mr. David Bayeva, chairperson of Central Drug Authority. Just your hand so that they can see you there. Can you please come forward? Thank you. Ma'am Angela McBride, the executive director of the South African network people that are using drugs. I don't know if she's here. If you can just say, just show of hands so that at least we know her. Okay, there she is next to our DM. Dr. Renee Smith from the Dean Faculty of Arts, Durban University of Technology. Is she here? Oh, okay. Mr. Nicholas Human from the head of department from Durban University of Technology. As well as other representatives from DUT. Then from sectors, we've also have different sectors. We've got AIDS Foundation SA, Ms. Thulile Mbele, as well as Tembega Madondo. I don't know if they're here. Thank you. Also the sector TB, HIV and care, Calvania. Ms. Palisa Pili, CEO of Durban Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Hlengiwe Mhlaba, KZN Artists Fraternal. I saw them. Hlengi, where? Oh, outside, okay. Thank you. Mr. Walter Peterson from Sanka. Are they here? Okay. Mr. Vernon Goss, Choose Life Specialist Recovery Center. Are they here? Mr. Sam Pillay, co-chairperson of PASF. Mr. Niresh Becken, manager of Lenmet Hospital. They're not here? Okay. ANC Thekwini Regional Coordinator, Begin Tuli. Are they here? Okay. Mr. Chris Mbele, CEO of Gateway Hospital. Okay. Senior government officials, national, provincial, municipality, and all agencies. That is the list that I've received as far as the guests that are here. If it happens that we have missed you for whatever the reason, please forgive us. It's just human error, nothing personal. Then the next one is online. For the online, we've got our Honorable Deputy Minister of Employment and Labor, Mebuitumelo Moloi. We've got our international agencies, UNODC, Mr. Zulsh Akechiva. We've got USAID, Mr. Mugabe. and we've got other stakeholders that have connected. And then we've got a former RSA president, Ntate Khalima Motlante, who's a commissioner on Commission on Global Drug Policy. Then lastly, we've got Professor Mark together with her team who have hosted us, who made it possible for us to gather here, Professor Mark and the team. In closing, thank you so much for making this day a success. We appreciate this day because this is one of the programs that we are breaking new grounds. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Caesar Mokhangwe, for acknowledging our guests. Can we give ourselves a round hand of applause? Ladies and gentlemen, you are all acknowledged. We are now going to request Her Worship, the Deputy Mayor of eThekwini Metro, Councillor Belinda Scott, to give us the welcoming remarks. Can we give her a round hand of applause, colleagues?
Good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to Durban. Deputy Minister, it is such a joy to have you here with us today. Sandput, I don't know if you can hear me. Sandput, I must have probably got lipstick or smeared all over my face. I mean, the joys of the joys of masks. The Sandput, TB, HIV care, advanced access and delivery. Madam Minister, this is my team. You're just sharing them for today. But I cannot tell you how honored we are as a city that you've chosen our Harm Reduction Centre to launch your relationship with Sandput. I have also, and you have heard their names, I've invited Palisa Pili from the Durban Chamber to be with us. We've also got Chris Mbele from Gateway. There are other major benefactors in this room. And I just want to say that this is the second phase of a program that we started over lockdown where 260 young people entered into a harm reduction or substance abuse program, which was fully done by NGOs and the private sector through private sector donor funding, which made our homeless shelters by far the best homeless shelters in South Africa during the lockdown. The successes that we had were amazing. I got to meet some incredible homeless people. Many homeless people have been reintegrated with their families. Many of them have got secure employment. We ran skills programs in a lot of these centers, or our lockdown centers. We've scaled down now because our numbers are less, but we always, my dear friend Monique, Professor Marks from DUT, we always were earmarking this hall for the Harm Reduction Centre, and we were not going to let it go. And that's what you see here today. I mean, it is just amazing. And what, after, you know, the harm reduction program or drug substitution program that we were doing in our lockdown shelters, it now continues to happen here. But it's not just the homeless that comes here. For many of you that, if you don't know, if you don't have a medical aid and you can't get into a hospital, it's a two-phase program. The first is detox. And if you don't deal with detox, Mr. Mbele, you'll back me up together with any other doctors in the room, you can't get into drug rehab. It's particularly very severe substances, which a lot of our people are using on the street, which are heroin-based. It's almost impossible to get off these drugs without an opiate substitute. So that's where we've been using the South African National People Using Drugs. We've used them as our vehicle to raise money to make this center work. So whilst it's an MOU between the university and the NGOs, but we are desperately asking, and that's one of the reasons why I've asked the business sector to come here. We are also going to be continuing these negotiations together with Professor Marks during the course of next month, because this is good for the city. It's brilliant for the homeless, but it's good for the city. That not only that we are a caring city, but it is actually providing destitute people a place to stay, which will be our safe open spaces, but also for people that are having problems with any kind of substance abuse, they've got a place to go to, and it's for free. Michael Wilson at the back, he works together with TB HIV Care and Match, so we don't just do drug substance abuse, we also do screening for TB, HIV Care, and I don't know if you've been reading the papers recently, but during lockdown, TB has been left to one side, and we've now got skyrocketing levels of TB. So this center also does the screening of TB, HIV care, HIV, sorry, and it's so important what the center, at the moment they've got about 200, Monique, I don't know what the capacity is, 2,000 if we had the money. So I'm coming out here, I'm abusing my place on this podium today for a hard sell to the business sector. I really want your money to make this program work. This is the first harm reduction center in eThekwini. I thank you. And I thank you for my team. I love you guys.
Thank you. Another round hand of applause for our Deputy Mayor. The matter of substance abuse or harm reduction is everybody's business. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. If we are saying it's everybody's business, we mean everybody's business. I want to request KZN as artists fraternal to also give their remarks in terms of this day. They are represented by Miss Hlengiwe Mhlaba that we all know. Can we give her a round hand of applause?
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies, Deputy Minister, and Deputy Mayor, and all the leaders, and ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about substance abuse and drug abuse. For me, I would love to understand what the substance abuse and drug abuse is. We are living in a world where it's a world of a relationship. Anything that we use, it's a relationship. Whether it's a person or whether it's a thing. We can use something for our benefit when we use it. But when you start abusing something, it becomes harmful to you. And when we are talking about some substances, there are some substances like medicine that we are given, but other people now are abusing it as drugs. So we are abusing what we are supposed to be using. So once you are so used into abusing something, you get addicted. And to get out of addiction, it's very difficult. There are two things that I know here in the world. where people who use them are called users. One, it's drugs, and people are using social media. We are not called clients in social media, but we are called users because we end up getting addicted to social media. To social media. That's why we are addicted. I don't believe there is even one person who dreamt one day that I will become a drug user in my life. So we are saying to all people who are having problem with drugs, come forward, come to your friends, come to us so that we can help. You can't do it on your own. No one can do it on their own. We have institutions like the Deputy Mayor was mentioning that can help. We need to help everybody because everything starts, even if you can ask a person who smokes cigarette, when they started with, can you give me a scarf? They didn't start with the whole cigarette. And anybody who is an alcoholic, they didn't start by just buying the whole bottle of wine. They were in a party and they said, just have a taste. So that it starts there. So we really need to tell people that don't even start it, because once you start, it's going to be a problem. And I'm just appealing to our young people that we need to stop drug using, because some of us, we know when we're using drugs. We need to stop it. And you cannot control yourself when you're using drugs. We have a high number of gender-based violence, and when we can check, people are on drugs when they're doing all those things. A normal person cannot do that. So we need to cap the drug usage. And I'm saying, as Slengiwe Mhlaba, as an artist, we as artists, we are there for you. And most of our artists, we also have a problem because the society, they expect too much out of us. And some of us, we end up getting into drug using. So can the society allow us to be human again so that we can do things the right way? We are expected to be driving that car and not that car. So I'm saying today, drug use must stop. We are not going to leave anyone behind because we say, that one you cannot change. There is not even a single dustbin for a human being. We leave no one behind. We are saying we are going to be with you. We are going to stand with you because drug use must stop and substance abuse must stop. Thank you.
Can we give her another round hand of applause? Thank you. The message we are taking is that leave no one behind. That's a powerful message. Thank you very much, Sis Slengiwe. We move on with our program, ladies and gentlemen. I would now like to call the chairperson of the Central Drug Authority, Mr. David Bayer. She is going to give us setting the scene and some reflections. Over to you, Dr. David. Thank you.
Program Director, Deputy Minister Social Development, Henrietta Bokopane Zulu, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Belinda Scott, UNODC and Abstentia Representative, Mrs. Zeus Akashiva, Deputy Minister of Employment and Labour, Honourable Malloy, MEC Social Development KZN, Ms. Khoza, Senate Executive Director, Angela McBride, His Excellency Motlantla Commissioner of the Commission Global Drug Policy, UNAIDS Country Director, Mr. Mugabe, and our host, Professor Monique Marks. On behalf of the Central Drug Authority, I would like to express our appreciation to participate in your event and to publicize that the National Drug Master Plan 2019 to 2024 has been handed over to our Minister of Social Development, Honourable Zulu. It has also been accepted by Parliament as the country's response to address the national concerns regarding substance use. I would like to pay tribute to our Deputy Minister, Gobopane Zulu, for initiating the collaboration between her department, the Central Drug Authority, and the South African Network for People Who Use Drugs in order to implement recommendations contained in the National Drug Master Plan. These are aimed to address harm minimization interventions and to support those members of society with their specific needs, and as we just heard, to leave no one behind. After more than 3 years of consultation and research, the plan underscores social protection and health care instead of punitive measures of conviction and punishment. The evidence-based approaches seek to integrate services which will decrease the incidence of HIV, sepsis, TB, and promoting retention in recovery programs and aftercare for people who use or inject drugs. As the statutory body established in terms of the Prevention of and the Treatment for Substance Abuse Act 70 of 2008, the Central Drug Authority comprises members of private and civil society members who are appointed by the Minister of Social Development, together with representatives from each of the provinces and national departments, to, amongst other things, recommend to Parliament measures to be taken to address the scourge of harmful substance use and develop a national drug policy to reduce the demand and the supply of drugs and to prevent the use and misuse, but at the same time to ensure their accessibility for medical and scientific purposes through multi-sectoral cooperation. Further objectives: promote governance, leadership, accountability for an effective, coordinated, multi-sectorial response by strengthening data collection, monitoring and evaluation, and research to identify the new psychotropic substances and to understand their effects. It aims to stimulate economic growth for the purpose of reducing poverty, unemployment, and inequalities in the country. At the outset, it is important to emphasize that the National Drug Master Plan takes into account the United Nations International Drug Control Conventions, namely the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, 1961, the Convention of Psychotropic Substances, 1971, and the United Nations Convention Against Illicit Drug in Trafficking and Psychotropic Substances, 1988. The 9 chapters of the National Drug Master Plan contains all the information gathered after extensive consultation. For the first time in editing this National Drug Master Plan, the people who use and inject drugs and who are the target audience were consulted, as well as international and local stakeholders, the national provincial departments, local authorities, particularly through the local drug action committees, and civil society. The policies and the goals included: discourage the onset of use and abuse of substances by demand reduction policies, as well as control of production and distribution of illicit substance and supply reduction. More importantly, the National Drug Master Plan contains a section on harm reduction and makes reference to holistically treating users to mitigate the social, psychological, and health impact of harmful substance use by including needle and syringe programs, opioid agonist or substitution therapy, HIV testing services, and STI prevention. The National Drug Master Plan 2019 to 2024 is based on our view of harm reduction, which we believe is a more inclusive and realistic concept. There are well-researched, established, and successful harm reduction programs aimed at HIV and AIDS and other blood-borne infections. Rather than just accepting drug use as a subset, we are directing our efforts to accept harm reduction as meaning an effort aimed primarily to address and to prevent the adverse health and social consequences of illicit and harmful use of drugs where necessary, as well as reducing the HIV and other blood-borne infections. This would incorporate interventions in the field of criminal justice, education, healthcare, social support, treatment, rehabilitation, reintegration, and aftercare. Allow me to introduce the 5 principles as outlined in the National Drug Master Plan. The first principle is a rights-based principle, whereby the plan respects, protects, and promotes the human right to freedom of choice. Principle 2 is an evidence-based that allows for the plan to remain a work-in-progress document, which can be changed as new scientific and research evidence becomes available. Principle 3 talks to a multi-sectorial and a multilateral approach. The success of the strategies depends on several government departments and stakeholders cooperating in a coordinated multi-sectorial and multilateral programs. In Principle 4, the plan highlights all the socio-economic political issues which precipitate the illicit home and commercial cultivation, manufacture, production, and trafficking in drugs. Through the extensive consultation with people who use drugs, Principle 5 identifies how to use communities as inclusive and participatory agents for change. And what we are witnessing here today is exactly what Principle 5 stands for. It is proof of the resolve to implement and the recommendations as laid out that has been spearheaded by our Deputy Minister and by SAMPRD. I again want to pay tribute to all concerned for the initiation of what we are witnessing this morning. To achieve the vision and the mission contained in the National Drug Master Plan, we have adopted the following goals, which were derived from stakeholders' inputs and again linked to the outcomes of the South African government's medium-term framework. There are 7 goals, and each of the goals included in the National Drug Master Plan has clearly set out measurable objectives or responsibility units in collaboration with other relevant stakeholders responsible for the implementation. The goals have plans on how to implement and how they should be executed. Goal 1 demands reduction through prevention and treatment of drug use, misuse, and abuse. Goal 2 talks to the supply reduction through the multi-sectorial cooperation. Goal 3 ensures availability of and access to controlled substances exclusively for medical and for scientific purposes, while preventing their diversion into the illicit market. Goal 4 identifies trends and controls of the new psychoactive substances. And Goal 5 is about promoting governance, leadership, accountability for a coordinated multi-sectorial effective response, including economic development and community at a community level. Goal 6 promotes data collection, monitoring, evaluation, and research evidence to achieve the goals. In Goal 7, we seek to stimulate robust and sustained economic growth aimed at reducing poverty, unemployment, and the inequalities which lead to substance abuse and substance misuse. These goals seek to reduce the supply and the demand of the drugs for non-medical uses, increase harm reduction treatment approaches in the treatment of substance use disorder. Aligned to the goals are the indicators and the key deliverables. These indicator measures and monitor the goal implementation processes and are contained in an addendum to the National Drug Master Plan. There is also a risk management plan which aims to identify specific potential problems that may occur and will become evident through the monitoring and evaluation processes and how to address them. Sorry, I've lost my page. All the planned activities are designed to address stigma, discrimination, and subsequent marginalization by creating an enabling environment whereby all role players will contribute to the well-being of the people who use or inject drugs. It aims to reduce substance use disorder, the burden of disease, and related mortality. It will also contribute to the reduction in all forms of human abuse, criminal activity, gender-based violence, and violence in general. The National Drug Master Plan observes national and international policies, plans, and conventions to ensure respect and dignity for all people in South Africa. A concerted effort is required from stakeholders, including policymakers, represented and demonstrated this morning by the commitment of our Deputy Minister and Deputy Mayor, and SAMPRD, and specifically the implementers, as witnessed here, being the activity of SANPUD in eradicating drug-related harms in the community. We are confident that this plan will usher renewed energy, investment, and efforts into the health and the welfare of many South Africans who will benefit from its implementation and your combined efforts. The Central Drug Authority salutes all concerned and looks forward to your success as an example of what benefits can be derived through commitment, cooperation, and your efforts. Thank you very much.
Mr. Baiva, the chairperson of the Central Drug Authority, can we give him another round hand of applause, colleagues? Thank you. That was very educational. Thank you so much. You did set the scene so that we are able to actually contextualize the area and the field of substance abuse in line with the Central Drug Master Plan, Thank you so much. I've seen people taking notes, which means that we're here to learn as well. Thank you. Deputy Minister Leadership, I must commend the participants, your guests here. They are all wearing masks and they're all maintaining social distancing. I think we need to acknowledge that. Thank you so much. I must indicate that leadership, we do have our important guests who couldn't be with us today, but they are connecting virtually and they have an important message that they have shared with us. Right now, we are going to get a message of support from our United Nations Office on Drugs, who is Regional Representative Zuldi Akisheva. So our colleagues at the back will link us with a pre-recorded input from Ms. Akisheva. We acknowledge the MEC for the Department of Social Development who is with us now. Can we get the recording? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Juldus Akisheva. I'm a regional representative of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. And it is my pleasure on behalf of the UNODC to welcome the launch of the South African Network on People Who Use Drugs, SANPUD, during the Social Development Month campaign. It is indeed remarkable that the event takes place in the Bilhaven Memorial Center, which is one of the best models for the provision of integrated health, including harm reduction and social services for people who use drugs. I would like to commend the municipality of eThekwini for ensuring that the services remained available during the lockdown as the measures were taken to protect both the staff and the clients. Community initiatives proved critically important, especially in crisis times. Now, during COVID-19 pandemic, communities have demonstrated their unique ability to react quickly and reach out to those who are otherwise unreachable, having effectively easing burden on the broader healthcare system. In this regard, let me praise the work done by the South African Network on People Who Use Drugs for addressing emergency need of people who use drugs. SANPUD should also be praised for continuous advocacy for a human rights-based drug policy and access to the evidence-based services for people who use drugs. I'm pleased to acknowledge specifically a very excellent level of cooperation between UNODC, my team stationed in Pretoria, with SANPUD during the needs assessment of women who use drugs. That was a joint initiative, and we are proud to have partnered with SANPUD on such a critical issue. Our collaboration continues, and I would like to use this opportunity to invite all of you to join a webinar on 18th November, where we are going to discuss how to address the challenges and rights violations identified during the assessment. I would like to commend the National Department of Social Development on the recent adoption of the National Drug Master Plan. Its implementation will be successful only if the voice of people who use drugs will be accommodated and acted upon. The implementation of the drug master plan should be right-based, protects and promotes human rights, enshrined in the Constitution of South Africa. It should apply the evidence-based approach. Let me conclude by wishing Sun Food to grow bigger, to grow stronger, and to provide all necessary support. And that continues the very important work it does in support of people who use drugs. My office stands ready to continue close cooperation with Sun Food, and we hope it will continue for the nearest years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, Ms. Akisheva. We are going to get another message of support from the country director of UNAIDS. He is Mbulawa Mugabe. Can you get that recording? Can we give him a round hand of applause?
Good
Mr.
morning,
Mugabe?
everyone. I'm delighted to join you this morning on this important occasion to launch the network of people who use drugs. First of all, I need to apologize for the fact that I cannot be with you physically, but I'm delighted to join. And I want to assure you that UNAIDS fully support this initiative, and we can count on our support going forward. I would like to recognize the leadership of the Deputy Minister of Social Development, my sister Henrietta Bohopani Zulu, who has been a real champion for this work. Let me also recognize any other dignitaries who are on the platform and also thank people who inject drugs, who use drugs, who joined us. In 2016, UNAIDS published a landmark report on HIV and drugs. The report was called Do No Harm, Health, Human Rights, and People Using Drugs. This report clearly showed us that the world was failing people who use drugs by not protecting their health and human rights. And this report provided a roadmap on what countries need to do to reduce harm and also to turn around those epidemics that are drug related. 3 years later, UNAIDS published another report called Health, Rights and Drugs, Harm Reduction, Discrimination, and Zero Discrimination for People Who Use Drugs. This report once again showed that people who use drugs continue to be left behind in our response. New infections among adults worldwide declined by 14% between 2011 and 2017. But there's been no decline in annual number of new HIV infection among people who use drugs. The United Nations has had a number of other high-level meetings, chief of which was the 2016 UN General Assembly session on World Drugs Problem. And this summit, clearly there was growing concern that we need to be looking at people-centered responses and public health responses, which are human rights based when we deal with people who use drugs. And following that, in fact, the United Nations also had another summit, which was looking at the global AIDS response. And clearly at that summit, there was a political declaration which also tried to put people who use drugs at the center of the response, discussing issues of vulnerability and lack of access to services for people with, who are actually using drugs. And in that report, it was very clear that we need to do much more than we have been doing before. And clearly in the latest report that UNAIDS has released, UNAIDS is calling for countries to implement harm reduction measures that are comprehensive, that looks at how we can actually include programs that deal with needle syringe, exchange programs, opioid therapy, and so on and so forth. It also called on access to healthcare services for people who use drugs, which are respectful and are, in fact, ensuring that we respect their dignity and confidentiality, and making sure that they also have access to HIV testing, life-saving treatment, including treatment for tuberculosis and hepatitis C, and also for sexual transmitted diseases. It also called upon human rights and laws that ensures dignity of people who inject drugs. Now, when it comes to South Africa specifically, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that in South Africa, HIV prevalence among people who inject drugs is significantly higher than in the general population. With a population size estimate for people who inject drugs of about 75,000, South Africa has an estimated HIV prevalence of about 21% among people who inject drugs. And a recent study has also found that in the Tshwane metro, 58% of people who inject drugs were HIV positive. This is 5 times the HIV prevalence in the general population in the Tshwane metro, which is about 11.7%. Hepatitis C remains a major problem, affecting an estimated 55% of people who inject drugs. But also we have a much more challenging problem in the sense that we have very limited data on what's happening on TB and also on overdose deaths among people who inject drugs. So the newly launched drug master plan of South Africa, of course, touches on some of the critical aspects that we need to incorporate as we go forward in making sure that we have a people-centered, science-based approach and human rights-based approach to the issue of drug use. And I want also to say that I think what we have also learned during the lockdown period for COVID is that where there's will, and of course with the leadership of government and other partners, principally the Department of Social Development, we were able to see that it is actually possible for law enforcement to have a much more attitudes that are actually accommodating and supportive to making sure that people who inject drugs actually have access to services. The HIV response has been largely known for its community-centeredness. And I think this is not less true for our approach to people who use drugs. Communities of people who use drugs need to be at the center. And we welcome the launch of this network today, because this network will give voice to the voiceless, and it will also amplify the often very muted voices of people who inject drugs. So I would like to join this meeting this morning, just to welcome this initiative and commit our support as the UN system in South Africa and UNAIDS in particular as we go forward. I thank you.
Round head of applause, colleagues. Thank you very much. Thank you. That was Mr. Mbulawa Mugabe, the country director for UNAIDS. We are going to get entertainment now by Ubandile and Singobile. Asibakhuthaze Bandile and Singobile.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Ubandile Shezi. I'm a musician, specifically I'm a rapper. I'm on the methadone program. Before the lockdown, I was addicted to Wunga for over 10 years and I was staying on the streets. So the lockdown to me was kind of a blessing in disguise. I just have a little something that I want to share with you guys. It's just a piece that I wrote. It's called Dear Mr. President. Dear Mr. President, as I write this letter, the page is flooded with tears. But stash it, it's time to man up and face my fears. I just hope you take the liberty to hear me out. Because what I see happening on the streets on a daily hurts me, but I ain't screaming ouch. To see young girls prostituting for Wunga, standards every day, but izinto lutho kulunga. It hurts me ukubona umfethu ebulawa iforum, and same time ushawa now a roster. Sabaleke ekhaya cause umzali ubegosta. And now we here, Stuba Makaya. Asisagezi siyanuka sesiphenduka ihlaya. Abanye bayasithuka ngapha abanye siyashawa. Ubush isiqwayi istina ngapha kukhala nedawa. They call us paras because Wunga left us paralyzed. But God will be the paramedic to bring the paracetamol to numb the pain. So it's the paranormal activity that took place in Calvary that will lead us to paradise.
Hey yo.
Hey yo.
See. What's up?
Ngazokutshela ngalaba ngiyakutshela bangazi bayitshela benjalo mangivela ba-right ema-back bayangigwaza plus banokuswela ama-rhymes thus ngiyabahleka kanjalo cause lama-rapper yanxakana they tryna feel themselves ngathi ukuheva ngezandla plus ucash benganawo thus getting paid per the hour was kind of vague ule out and I'm chasing the money till I'm dead in the ground ngano dedela igazi ngasuphethe mnganami ngasuveza lwegani kube khona squeeze trigger kini gas party. Better said than it's done. Better pay me my bucks. Cause I cherish my art and I'm getting the bucks. Now you hate it, I'm sus. Now I got a brand new track. Now I got a brand new set. Get it? Now I gotta break you cats. Summer like if you chap. Get it? Banaba pay to shell. Get my airport cats. Really got ish that'll take you back. Back to the bamboo pier. Now feel it. All I is what you really want. But you never be me, better give it up. Cause what I do ain't fair. Got my crew backstab. When I'm through with a fool, I'll be cool, take that. Hush. The mood ain't fair, plus I'm rude as hell, thus I move, I ain't scared from the boot to the nose, I'm a two-lane safe, must and cool play fair, guys, utuchulo ngay jail, it sucks, mangikhuza ungayekushutha uzo ngiyakubuka ungaqumba kusahlekwa konke kunako vele kuphuma kumina ngasuthola ibhadi ugcina uqulekile bathi khona kunale lenza kuthuka iningi vele ugoba ubhawe mase kuphuma insimbi, what? Gibela ngoba itex ngayigibela ngaduka enemali engekho grand ngabe ngaphuka iskrati saba iplane ngabe ngamuka like ngezo olwandle ngibalekela ukunuka buka ngizange ngibalekela ikhaya kuhlale eceleni kwakhona la kudayiswa khona uphaya ngikhuza uhebe phela mina ngiphuma le emakhaya ngiyabonga
Awe, siyabonga, siyabonga. Thank you, siyabonga.